I'm thinking that's, just to sit at your computer all day is kind of challenge.
Good
You
morning.
have to take breaks and take walks.
Right. I do anyway.
Is there snow in Iowa today?
No, there is not. We haven't had any precipitation, and it's been getting up in the mid 40s most every day. So it hasn't been too bad.
Mid 30s
Sounds good.
here today. Supposed to be.
I think we're supposed to get up to 42 or something like that. So, which is wonderful at this time of year.
Yeah.
Carolyn, where in Iowa do you live?
I live in Sully, which is about 30 miles north of Oskaloosa, about 40 miles east of Des Moines.
Oh, okay.
Oskaloosa, the Quaker center of Iowa.
Yes, I lived there for 35 years.
Interviewed to be
I
the
love that town.
pastor at College Avenue in
Who is
19.
that?
I interviewed to be pastor at College Avenue in, I believe it was 1980.
We missed a good one then.
You didn't. You dodged a bullet.
I'm trying to think of who was there in 1980. I think it was John Havens, maybe.
Kirk had just left, I think.
Okay. It would have been John and Eileen Havens got the job
Eves Cadwallader
back then.
asked the deciding question for me. And that was on the very last day when I was all set to say yes. He was the last person I saw before I left town. And he goes, "Why in the world would you want to move to Oskaloosa when all your friends are back in Ohio and Indiana?" And on the drive back, I thought, yeah, why would I? So, and my then wife said she didn't want to move, so that kind of settled it. So I told Eves one day, I said,
We
yeah,
have a lot of in.
told him he asked one of the best pastoral questions I'd ever been asked. Why?
He was a really amazing man.
Stayed with Mildred and Marion Rains that trip.
Yeah. They were amazing people also. Iola, Eves' wife, is still alive.
I heard. As I'll mention in my message this morning, their daughter-in-law had a poem today on the Writer's Almanac. Julie Cadwallader Staub.
Yeah. Iola has put a few of her poems to music.
Back in the day that I was on the USFWI board the first time, when we had triennial conferences, there were two Quaker poet/musicians that we kind of alternated between to write the theme songs for the triennial conferences, and Iola was one of them, and Mary Lynn
Yeah.
Stanfield from Wilmington was the other one, and they wrote beautiful hymns.
Oh, I think Iola still plays and tries to, I mean, because it was just 2 years ago that she put the poems to music. And they shared them at William Penn that year.
Uh-huh.
So,
If I remember right, she often wrote both the words and the music for the theme songs that she wrote. Mary
Yep.
Lib often wrote new words to standard hymn tunes that people would know, but they both did beautiful jobs of that when they were asked to.
well, I know Iola's written at least 4 musicals. And
Mm.
she's just amazing.
I don't know whether Iola participated in this or not, but the first Quaker youth pilgrimage in 1948, Mom went on, and Eves was on that, along with Dave Nellie Castle and some other well-known Quakers of that era. So I've known who they were for a long time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning,
Did
Jeff.
Sylvia get married and everything?
She did.
Yes, it's all legal.
I have a cute little kitten that's gonna need a home.
You always have some animal, Chip.
Is that a new kitten or the same one?
It's the one that I saved. She's now,
Okay,
she or he, I don't know which, is now eating dry food and playing with Maggie, so that's good.
that's good.
Well, so Caroline and Dale, how far apart do you two live in Iowa?
Depends on whether you're talking about how you can get there by road or how the crow flies. I think it's like 7 or 8 miles as the crow flies, but it's probably closer to twice that.
Oh, I think it's only 10 to your house.
Oh, okay. But you don't go
He's
that
my
way
neighbor
that
to the
often.
north.
There's a river that goes through. You can't get there direct.
I wouldn't call it a river. I would call it a
Okay,
creek.
there's a creek, but it doesn't have as many bridges as it.
There are times that it is like a river, though.
Yeah, well, I assume it empties into the Skunk River, so,
Yes.
which isn't very big right now.
No. We need some precipitation.
When 2 or 3 Quakers get together, there are 2 or 3 arguments, aren't there? That's not a river. It's a,
Is it a creek or a creek?
Good morning,
a 40,
Chantel.
so it's a crick.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chantel.
Good morning.
Comes
Well,
Brandon
somebody
Dennis.
used Brandon again this morning.
Looks like
Yeah, that's right. Brandon is with us.
that's so nice. I'll fix that.
Looking
Well.
at everyone.
The newlyweds.
Hey, hi.
Oh yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, both of you.
Yeah.
Theodora. And Steve and Caroline.
Good morning.
All right, changed your name.
That's cute.
That is really cute. Indeed.
What's this? The bean duo.
You read that? It says the newlyweds.
Decided to join earlier. I finished all the seasons of When Calls the Heart, so I had no more entertainment. Just kidding.
For those of you that know Susan Felix, she has now tested negative, and her daughter is now negative, so she's on the mend.
That's wonderful.
She had a rough time of it, didn't she?
I got a text last evening from Beth. I'm having terrible feedback here, so I'm hearing myself in 2 or 3 different places. Beth Crosser texted last evening to say that Ruth has tested positive for COVID. Her symptoms are very mild. She just has a little bit of a cough and feels achy. Her biggest problem is she's bored out of her mind because everybody is in lockdown at the retirement home. She's having to eat in her room by herself, can't go out at all. So Beth encouraged us to call and send her cards just to kind of help break the monotony for her and keep her in our prayers, of course.
She said a few days ago when I talked to her, she said there weren't any cases there.
That's what she had told me when I talked to her
Or two,
earlier this week too.
Maybe they'd only had 2 or something very minor.
That's what she had told me earlier this week as well. But according to Beth's text last night, even the manager has texted positive now. And there are a number of other people at the facility also. So things
Someone
have taken a nosedive all of a sudden for some reason.
on staff had it and didn't know it.
Wow.
For your information, Chantel, Ruth is a 94-year-old member of our meeting who lives in a retirement community.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle and Lisa are over it. So we're happy for that. And nobody else in the family's come down with it.
Here, we have, we're no longer allowed to have Christmas. It's been forbidden. We can't have Christmas anymore. We can't gather for Christmas in any way. And that's, well, that's gonna be really, really special not to be able to, but let's face it, if that's what we have to do, then we'll have to do it.
Her first cousin. And Caroline and Dale's grandmother and Lynn's grandmother and my grandmother are sisters.
Okay.
Burger, is your hair still growing?
Yes, I've yet to trim it. And when I wash it, it stands up in the middle. So maybe it's some Indian heritage that I have. It seems to be much finer, more wispy than before. Other than that, I think I'm pretty much over all of the transplant stuff. I still have more muscle aches and so forth than I think I should, but then it may just be getting older. I do have a birthday this month.
How many months?
29th.
Since you always count by months.
It would be 744 months. Remember, when you're 83 1/3, you're 1,000 months old. So give yourself a 1,000-month birthday.
Chantel, where do you live that you can't have Christmas?
Quebec province in Canada.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's our government that just decided that. My father wants to be against that and said he would come and pick me up so I'm not alone. So it'd just be the three of us. But we're afraid that the police is gonna come and give us a fine. Several people have fines here for gathering of like $3,000 if you
Ouch.
gather. Like people denounce each other. They call the cops, say my neighbor is gathering with people. So it's like a risk to take.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really severe.
Sorry about that.
Friends, it's time to begin worship. Are there prayer concerns or joys to share? Certainly, we can share the joy of Sylvia and Dan's meeting for worship for marriage yesterday.
Thank you to all you who helped with it. We just thought it went really well. Yeah, it's such a good time.
And we're still happily married.
Not been quite 24 hours, so we'll hold you in the light during the next couple hours.
Thank
It
you.
was a wonderful event.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
I'm the worship leader this morning, and so if you would put yourselves on mute for now so we avoid the feedback issues, I will speak out of the silence when I feel led. Well, as many of you know, I love poetry. I have bookshelves lined with poetry, poem books. I even have books of parodies of poems, of famous poems. This is the Brand X anthology of poetry. It's all parodies of poetry. So it's poetry. In this one, it's, for example, if Walt Whitman had written Jack and Jill, it starts, I celebrate the personality of Jack. I love his dirty hands, his tangled hair, and it goes on in a Whitman-esque vein. But I love poetry speaks to me in a way that other forms of writing don't. It touches me at my deepest part. A friend of mine who is a poet, which I am not, Mary Brown, once said that poetry is the only writing truly done to the glory of God. Now that sounds like something a poet would say. She went on to say, well, you know it is because you're so poorly paid as a poet. So you must do it for the glory of God because you're not going to make any money at it. But she has written wonderful poems, and I've used some in some of my books. And another friend of mine, I featured one of her books on my Facebook page that's coming out, numbered like the Psalms. Catherine Phillips, who's a Episcopal priest and poet. I find, as I reflect on my love of poetry, I think it goes back to encountering the Psalms as not as a kid, but as a teenager, and finding in some ways they spoke to me in ways that other parts of the Bible didn't. I always liked the stories. I liked the Gospels. Occasionally, I liked the letters of Paul. But the Psalms just seemed real, full of raw emotion and truth from the psalmist's heart, whether it be praising God or anguish, torment. Even Jesus quotes Psalm 22 while hanging on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Just the raw power of that poetry and the beauty of it. And so as a young adult, I began collecting various books of poetry when I could afford to do so. And one of the first books I bought, it's $1.45, by Lucy Shaw, The Risk of Birth, the gift book of Christ poems. And it is just a book of poetry, very brief, about from the Annunciation through the resurrection. And I have some favorites in here that seem appropriate to this season that Quakers don't tend to celebrate, of Advent. But the coming Christmas. And one is called Star Witness. It's by Beth Morrison. How could we be anything but true believers? We shepherds who heard the news firsthand from heaven. There stood that angel on the gate, grazing ground like a white fan, like a white blaze, lighting the air all around, telling us the promised one had come and where he was and what his destiny. And then that great arc of angels singing a Gloria. We left our sheep that night and found the lamb. Every time I read that poem, it opens up the story, the familiar story of the shepherds in a new way for me. And that's often what poetry can do, is open up the greatness of the gospel story to me in a way that isn't quite so familiar and helps give me new insight, and perhaps will help me find the lamb again, anew and afresh. Now, you may find other forms of beauty speak to you. Perhaps music, perhaps fine art, perhaps plays, television shows, looking out the window at the birds, going for a walk. But whatever, in this season of anticipation of the coming of Jesus, who has already come, may you find space to re-encounter the magic and the mystery of God clothing God's self in flesh and dwelling among us, coming as a vulnerable little baby dependent upon us for life and sustenance. And recovering the wonder of love even in this dark time. The title poem of this book, The Risk of Birth, is by Madeleine L'Engle. And it is, and I think will be for all of my life, my most favorite poem. It says, "This is no time for a child to be born, with the earth betrayed by war and hate, and a comet slashing the sky to warn that time runs out and the sun burns late. That was no time for a child to be born, in a land in the crushing grip of Rome. Honor and truth were trampled by scorn, yet here did the Savior make his home. When is the time for love to be born? The inn is full on the planet Earth, and by a comet the sky is torn, yet love still takes the risk of birth. Yet love still takes the risk of birth. And that it does, I am grateful. Yesterday we celebrated love taking the risk of birth in Sylvia and Dan, and they're with us today as a married couple. All around us, there's an opportunity for us to offer love. May we do so, and may we marvel again in the great love that has come to us, the love of each other, and the love of the God who will never let us go. Amen. Well, as we come to the end of our time, are there any thoughts or words that friends would like to share before we close?
I just like to thank the red cat for his delightful presence.
Do people have Ruth's address and phone number? I would be glad to get them in an email if people don't have her contact information. Because she really would like to hear from us, I'm sure.
I would like that because I don't have it.
Okay.
It was good to see you all. So blessings.
Thank you,
and
friends.
See you next
Good
week.
to see you, Megan.
Yeah. And congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be well, everyone.
Bye.